Don was all like, oil? Let's watch some ducks.
Live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Life Podcast. I'm here with Benji, Tyler, and I'm Eric. And this is a podcast where we talk about life and our perspective of it, and we just kind of have conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about Benji. What are we talking about today?
We're going to be talking about you.
You're going to talk about me. Yeah, it's going to be a short show if we're going to talk about me. We're talking about a lot of things. We have a bunch of stuff. The show notes are filled with things. So it's really just a grab bag. The last time we recorded this, which wasn't yesterday, we talked about being real and being genuine and what that means and being like not putting people in boxes. And probably most of you have listened to the last show. I don't know who jumps in on show 2, but fair enough. Does anyone have any like opening comments about last show?
I think it went extremely well. I mean, other than some of our small hiccups and improvements that we need to get through, but I mean, really for just jumping in and just saying, okay, well, let's start a podcast. Ta-da!
Yeah,
we held ourselves very well.
Tell you what, we got better this week.
We don't have a pee and coffee machine in the background. That's
the goal in life is to always improve, and no coffee maker was a good one.
I think that was some of what we said yesterday is like we always have to improve, and that's part of keeping it real too. Is always change, always adapt, always evolve, and keep going.
Yeah, and that was like all about last week. Last episode. I keep saying last week, but it was really just 2 days ago. But yeah, it was a lot about being authentic and keeping it real, and even when things don't go according to plan. I didn't plan for a coffee maker to do all that noise in the background, but you kind of just gotta roll with the punches and not be so in control.
Being dynamic is a big thing. I guess that's where we're going. So, like, being dynamic and being willing to roll with the punches, that phrase, roll with the punches, I use a lot. But it's so true, where people sometimes get caught up on the little details, and they're like, okay, now I can't move until this one little thing gets resolved. And I think being dynamic and being able to be like, you know what is what it is. Like, wherever you guys want to go for breakfast or whatever, like some people get so caught up on this is like there's no plan, like I can't operate with no plan, you know. And I think there's something to be said about having plans, but
well, we can bring that back to yesterday's show too, and that human element, and we were talking about how we need everything to be refined and polished, and and that urge to be like, oh, we need to take this out in post, or this wasn't perfect. Yesterday's performance could have been enough to stop anybody dead in their tracks and be like, we're not cut out for a podcast,
right?
But it was real. It's the conversation we had. Rock what you got and send it.
I mean, bringing it back to like having a plan, that's like you can't. You have to have a plan. I mean, I know I kind of stopped there. I'm trying to find the right words here, but you have to have a plan in order to get to where you want to go. I mean, an idea is just an idea until you create plans and goals to make it a reality. It'll just stay an idea unless you start to plan.
Well, sometimes there's a place for rigidity and like a very in-depth, detailed plan. And there's another. You were talking about tolerance yesterday. It's really it goes down to the individual on what type of tolerance and what type of discipline they will have within that plan. Say, okay, well, end game 5 years is going to be this. I have this stepping stone that I want to hit. How I get there, I don't know, and I'm going to roll with the punches until I get there.
Absolutely. The reason why I pulled out my phone was because I have a quote from Napoleon, which is a very interesting individual to get a quote from, but nonetheless, which is, take time to deliberate, but when time for action comes, stop thinking and go in.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's like that's a core concept where it's like, okay, you can take as long as you want to plan. But I think sometimes we get stuck in the planning. We get stuck with so many details, and we say, okay, I want to do a minute-by-minute calculation for every little thing. And it's like sometimes you have to give that tolerance. That's what we were talking about, was that tolerance where it's like, I'm okay when things don't go exactly perfectly, you know.
Go ahead.
Being a musician, that's really big. You can't think when you're a musician. Sometimes you can plan, or you can have like a forefront saying, okay, I need to end on this chord. I have X amount of bars, but you can't like just shut down if the solo run that you made wasn't exactly what you thought you were going to do. Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing about goals. You have to make them flexible. You have to be able, like, it's a goal. It's like something you're aiming for. You have like an idea of how you want to get there. But I'm going to tell you, 99.9% of the time, it's not going to go the way you expected. It's just a matter of getting there.
Or at least one thing is not going to go perfectly. And how you react to that one thing going incorrectly is the biggest thing. Where it's like, you can learn a lot about a person when you put them in a stressful situation. Or it's like, okay, how does this person react under stress? How does this person react under pressure? Do they like completely break down? Do they stop in their tracks? Like, and that's a very like character analyzing tool that you can use on yourself and on other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, like you can really get to know somebody based on like, just when things go wrong and how they react. How we react to situation is really how what the situation becomes. If you get angry at something, now it's a bad situation. You know what I mean? Things are going to happen to you. Things are going to get in your way. That's a part of this life. So when things do go wrong, it's a matter of how you handle it that kind of dictates the next steps. If you kind of just look, if you don't, acting on emotion is something that a lot of people do. And it can hurt you in the long run, especially when it comes from like if you're trying to build up some sort of brand for yourself or a good reputation. I usually bring those two things up in hand because when you're talking about a brand, essentially you're just talking about your reputation. So that being said, the way you handle things and not taking it from an emotional standpoint and just looking at it from a logical place where you're just able to like take in the information, not get angry, not get too upset, and then formulate a way out of it. Or at least work your way to that.
I think it was Warren Buffett who said like you have to isolate yourself from emotion in that way before you make any kind of decision.
Absolutely. We talk about the psychological thing where it's like a sunk cost fallacy, where it's like sometimes we get so engraved in a situation and we're like, I'm going to lose so much if I don't do this or if I don't continue to put effort into this thing. And it can cost you a lot more in the long run than like cutting your losses. And that emotional aspect sometimes hinders you from being able to do that ability to walk away. And that's one of those things where it's like, emotion is important when you're making decisions because emotion can drive a lot. That's the whole reason why we do things. Is like if we just sit here and we logically say, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get a profit, there's no emotion in it, then it becomes boring. So we have to take emotion into account, but we also have to realize that emotion can make us do dumb things.
Yeah.
Or we can use emotion to make choices we wouldn't have made in a logical frame of mind.
Talking about it, the best way to get to know somebody, we were talking about just like really seeing what people's true colors and character are. Take them on vacation for a week.
Yes.
We were talking about this a while ago, Benjamin and I, and just like when you take people that you can spend a lot of time together. We can spend an hour in the studio every single day and really get to know each other. But then you really, really get to know somebody when you can take them out, travel with them, get them tired, and spend consecutively like hours upon hours with that person. Then you really get to see what their true colors are.
If I've never traveled with a person before who's my friend, I purposely pick early morning and red-eye flights. Because that's like only the first time. I'm not a horrible human who's like if Tyler and I went on if Tyler and I went somewhere now, I would just pick a normal time.
Benji knows me on like 2 hours of sleep for
exactly
for a long time.
Exactly. So, but like the first time if I've known somebody long enough that we're going somewhere together, like on a flight, I purposely pick those times because you see somebody in a state of exhaustion and you see somebody in an airport, which is like a super high stress environment where nothing usually goes right and they're super tired. And if they flip out on the TSA agent, you're like, okay, now I know who you really are. Like, and that characteristic is
what do you mean?
important.
That's out of character, Benji.
Yeah, that's out of character.
That's actually, I've never heard that before. That's actually a really great idea. And that's a great way to actually get to know who somebody really is. Who's the person they're trying to hide all the time? You know what I mean?
We were talking about that yesterday. Oh, well, that was just out of character. No, that's just because you could put on like that's your face that you show everybody. But when you get real tired, you can't put that mask up fast enough.
Yeah. So everyone beware when you get a really cool job interview and your boss invites you to vacation before actually hiring you.
Yeah.
Drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah. That thing is interesting too. Like and this might be a different segment, but the concept that sometimes people get afraid of you when you're this one-sided person, where it's all like, because people psychologically, and this is like a subconscious thing. I don't think people think like, oh, that person only has one face. That's a pretty dangerous thing. But like subconsciously, you think like this person is the same person in high stress, in low stress, on vacation. It's like, why is this person only the same person? Because most of the population, if you take the population and you make a generalization and you say most people are not the people that they show you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's thinking like, oh, this person is really good at putting an act on. And then that crosses over into, no, this person is only one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people get put off by that or are kind of scared by that, where it's all like, this person is exactly who I see them as.
Well, that's the essence of keeping it real.
Yeah.
That's real, keeping it 100.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, different situations will pull out different things out of you. Like you said, like a high stress situation in the middle of an airport, everything's going wrong. TSA agent pulls you aside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Randomly selected.
Yeah, you've been randomly selected.
Come with me, Ahmed.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, so like those kind of situations, I mean, it's gonna pull different things out of you. And I have never personally met somebody who was able to keep one face on yet. I mean, if you're out there, I'd love to meet you.
Yeah, you just don't.
Oh, you guys are...
Well, we did this. Well, Tyler and I have been. So the background, we've had shows before. Tyler and I have had shows before, and that was an exercise in being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tyler and I have already gone through that stage of our lives where we were put in a situation where we had to be who we were, and I think we were most of the way there before that show started. But now it's come to fruition where it's like, this is what you get. Like, this is what you're buying, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the antithesis of this show. That's not the antithesis. That's the purpose of this show. That's like the core concept of the show is, this is what you're getting. Mm-hmm. Like, being real, being genuine, being like, this is it. If you want it, that's great. If you don't, then that's okay too. But this is who we are, and this is what we're doing. And I think your life gets so much easier because you stop caring about, that person thinks I look like this, that person thinks I look like that, this person is looking at what kind of clothes I wear. You know, you start doing things, and this sounds like so super hippie, but it's like you buy clothes because you like them. You do things because you like them. You go on to events because you like them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was the whole outline for the whole studio and the podcast in general was your criteria is, do you like this product that you're making? Mm-hmm. If you do, that means that there's somebody else out there that will like it too, regardless of your criticism.
Mm-hmm. Welcome, listeners.
Welcome. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for liking the same things we do.
Seriously. No, that's real. It is amazing because you do need practice to get to that point of genuine, to be that genuine, I think. You know what I mean? It's not like, it's one thing that you can be real when you're alone. It's one thing when you're real around your friends. It's another thing when you're real around people that you don't want to show you, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then when you're like around other people and you don't know them and you're not really around that situation often, and you're usually kind of just alone, but every now and then you get pulled into these different situations and you don't know how to handle yourself, and then like all of a sudden you're not being real with yourself. But I think it does take practice to get from like one point to the other. Like you guys were saying, you guys were almost there before the last show you guys did, and then after that show you guys became like fully like, this is me. Like,
well, we got pushed into it where it's all like, you can't hide yourself. We were doing 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, live. So it's like you can't hide yourself from people
for that long
at that stage.
Yeah,
and it's like you can play an actor in a movie for 100 hours, 200 hours, the amount of time that you're acting, and you can play that. But when you do that many hours, that consecutively, that close together every single day, you have to be who you are. And that pushed us to be like, okay, this is who I am as a person. That doesn't necessarily mean, before we go to a break, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like, oh, I'm going to tell every single person in my life every single thing about me. It means that when I tell you something about myself, I'm not going to try to make it fancy or make it random or make it weird. It's like, this is who I am as a person. If you don't like me for it, you have every right to leave.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
Amen. So I guess we can stop there and we can pick it up in a few minutes and we'll come back and just shoot into that vein.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Janet, does anybody know where that came from?
Yes. Pharaoh Tyler, yeah.
My friend. Go ahead.
No, I was like, that was a phrase that I always wanted to try to roll into my list of things that I said, but that never ended up happening.
My buddy Scott tries to use it at every given moment possible.
I believe it. Eric, do you know that movie?
10 Commandments.
No.
It's a long movie.
Charleston Heston. It's like 3.5 hours. It's like 6 VHS tapes long.
It's amazing. It's a good movie though.
Well, that just dated it for me, so that's probably why I haven't watched it.
We have to have a viewing day where we watch the whole thing.
I am Charlton Heston. I mean, I am Moses.
All right, I'm with it.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome back to the Life Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Today we've been talking about just being fluid, being people to roll with the punches, and really tying in that concept yesterday of being real, because it all goes hand in hand. Mm-hmm. We kind of broke talking about the fear of man and really just putting ourselves out there and saying, this is me, this is my brand, this is as real as I can get. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a better explanation of fear of man is like, that sounds like, so fear of man. It's like, do you care what people think about you? Then you're kind of afraid of other people, and that's a fear. Mm-hmm. That is something, and fears can be overcome, with conscious thought. You know what I mean? I at one point was terrified. Fun fact about me: about a year ago, I was terrified of bees. I could not see a bee without kind of panicking, and not that I could walk into a bee field and be okay today, but I've consciously made it a habit for me to see a bee and purposefully not panic and kind of just put my thought forward, it's not going to hurt me. Mm-hmm. Even if it stings me, it's not that bad. Mm-hmm. And that became with time. It wasn't just I'm not afraid of bees anymore. You have to have purpose in your thoughts to get through that fear. And I think it's the same thing with your, how you think other people see you, and that fear of them judging you or whatever it is that you think they're going to do to you.
Well, while we're being real and while we're being vulnerable, I said something yesterday and it wasn't 100% true. I don't know why I grossly exaggerated like I did. But talking about it, I grew up. My parents bought a house in Belize, the country of Belize, I don't know, more 15 years ago, if not more. I really can't put time frames on it. I grossly exaggerated saying that I lived there for a straight year. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but I did live with a family who owned a dairy farm for 2 months.
The truth shall be revealed.
No, but that 1 year was a gross exaggeration.
Yeah.
Out of all the times that we would stay there before we bought our own house, it probably totaled about a year. And I had a lot of experience living with that family and being there. Mm-hmm. But as far as the way I said it yesterday when I was reviewing the podcast, or not yesterday, the other day, it was just no, that was kind of a gross exaggeration. I wasn't keeping it real at that moment, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So there you guys go. I had to get that one off my chest.
For all of you who background checked Tyler and were like, he's lying.
It was 3 months.
Yeah.
But that's a part of keeping it real, because sometimes we're just talking, and even when you're in conversation with other people, and you exaggerate things. And the cool part is we could listen back to yesterday's conversation. You could catch that, and now you can come in today and correct it. That's being real.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it was the truth, but it was half truth. It was that was a gross exaggeration. If I said 3 months, that's okay. Well, that's. Yeah, that's actually close to realistic.
Well, you were younger.
I was.
So time felt longer, which is just a
please
real
help
thing.
me justify.
No, it's true. It's time feels longer when you're young, and that's usually how I start phrases. Back when I was if I talk about a story back when I was a kid, I usually disclaimer. My parents will know this. I'll be it's probably not true because time and things are skewed.
I learned English a long time ago.
I did learn English a long time ago. Yes, very much so. But Eric said something last segment that was people are a brand, and we say brand because brand is reputation. Mm-hmm. And I think, at least in America, I haven't really interacted with brands outside of the U.S., but in America, brands are a corporate thing, and humans have become brands themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too. Mm-hmm. Really, our names are our brand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Benjamin is a brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think that when you work with yourself, and specifically if you provide a service, mm-hmm. A lot of people provide a service now. America is based off of service-based. We don't really produce anything. We make stuff for other people. But that's a long topic. But we have become this concept where it's I am the person providing the service. The service really isn't my specialty. It's me as an individual. And I think that that's what's become dangerous, is this concept where it's like we had this step-by-step process where, like, back in the day, brands were these immaculate entities, and, you know, they sold crystal dishware, and they're all really cool, and they're all really fancy, and then people started becoming brands, so they have to hold themselves in this immaculate, fancy way that the brands held themselves. And I think that that's a core issue that we have.
Or even not so much an immaculate fancy way, but think about popular rappers or hip hop artists or whatever. If you have one little silly quirk, or you say something that was silly, and then that I don't even want to say a lapse of judgment, but whatever that was, people know you by that, and then it completely transforms your persona.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, like an example, like DJ Khaled, where like we the best.
Yeah.
Like
now you're stuck in that box of ignorance. We the best.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about him other than that.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
DJ Khaled, you're a great man, okay?
Sorry, buddy, I called you ignorant.
But no, absolutely. And I think if branding is taught improperly, it can be dangerous. But if you have because at the end of the day, your brand is your reputation. It's just a change of words, and we always had reputation before that. But this whole like corporate thought and the way that we've moved in the last like 10 years, the word brand has been thrown around a lot, especially like on YouTube videos and other people, success stories. Because now if you're successful, you get a podcast, or but you get a podcast, or you get like a video series, and you explaining how you got there. And like the number one thing that they say is you have to develop your brand, but they don't really. Not everyone really explains that, So then people start getting this weird persona of it. They either get afraid of it, or they just don't really completely evolve in it. But I mean, your brand is something that evolves with you, and this is from my perspective. Is my brand like 3 years ago was a little different than what it is today, but it evolved over time into what it is, and it's because I'm building a reputation of who I want to become. Your brand is pointing in that direction, especially when you're talking about a brand of yourself, because no one really cares about a brand unless there is something about it that there is to care about. If it's authentic, it's real. You know what I mean? You could like come up with like some random thing and with a cool name, but if it doesn't have any backstory, or if it doesn't have anything that's really able to grab onto, people aren't really going to be attracted to it, and it'll fall on its face. If it's just a logo kind of thing, people are attracted to. That's why branding for yourself is so big, is because you can put your face on it. There's a story to you. People want to know people, and in such a digital world that we live in today, people are able to grasp onto you, and if they can see your face and you're a person, you're willing to put your story out there, it's almost like they know you. And at the same time, you could use that to your advantage and sell your services along the way. You know what I mean? So people want to get to know you. You're building a relationship with your customers, with your fan base, with whatever it is. If you're a rapper, or if you're, an entrepreneur, whatever it is, you're building that relationship through your brand. And at the same time, your brand is selling something back to them or to whoever is willing to pay for it.
And I think that there's a very dangerous point to that too, where it's all like, if you're competing with other brands, people kind of have a concept for an industry. So I work in an industry that has a very specific image to it, and I'll say jewelry because that's the easiest way to do it, but or not self promo. Like there's an image that jewelry has, and there's an image that you have to. There's a standard. Like people will not buy jewelry from you if you don't meet that standard, and you have to work really hard to create something that looks close enough to the competitors, but different enough to make a difference to the person who's looking at it. And balancing that line and walking that line is very difficult. And it's the same thing even if you go back down to like a personal level, where it's all like, we want to be interesting to other individuals, but we can't just be completely outlandish and ostracize ourselves from the community. And that's what being real really is, where it's like, I'm not going to dilute myself down to what you expect of me, but I'm also not going to ostracize myself from the community as a whole.
Absolutely. people, and that's where it's dangerous, is because you can let your brand become a box, and that's not the point of it. Your brand is supposed to grow.
Yeah.
It's supposed to grow with you. And there's people who like set a brand, and this is where, like, if you're not taught it properly, it can really get dangerous. Is like, because you just set it, you make a website, whatever it is that you want to do for your brand. You have social media channels, whatever. You have a podcast. It don't matter. And then like you kind of make it, and then you don't grow from it, and you kind of use that as a standard of like, I have to be this forever. No, it grows. Your audience is going to change over time.
We talked about that yesterday with was he CEO of Bugatti?
Oh yeah. The CEO of Bugatti now. Yeah.
Anyways, so he was working on the Porsche 911 line, basically head of product development, right? And he was like, I need to get out of here because I'm stuck in this 911 box where the 911 is going to be the 911 forever.
Yep.
Until it never ends. So I need to go to somewhere else where I can go and actually grow and develop as a person, because that box, that brand, that icon that everybody know it to be with its reputation has kept me in a place where I can't variate from it. So that was really good. And
yeah, absolutely.
We've been talking about being fluid and being vulnerable today, so I'm just trying to
go back to that.
try to bring this whole thing back around. What can we do when it comes to, say, you're building a brand, you're building a reputation, you're building you, especially you as yourself, saying, okay, well, myself is my brand, and maybe something just doesn't happen the right way, or you do something that's like, ooh, that's out of character.
Yeah.
I got quotes going on in here, but like, you're like, ooh, that was ugly of me, because I mean, nobody's perfect and nobody's there. How do you recover from a hit like that when you say, ooh, I messed up?
I think it kind of depends on your industry, but or I know as you as a person, whatever it is that you're trying to build, but for the most part, I think like you have to come out and kind of address it and get in front of it instead of waiting for the train to hit you, because like, you know when you do something wrong, you know when you kind of go on a rant or whatever. Sometimes there's a delay between like you did something and you realizing it's wrong, but as soon as you get to that point where like maybe that wasn't right, or you start seeing the feedback from other people and they're like, bashing you for it. I think the best way to kind of do that, depending on what it is that you did, but for the most part, is get in front of it and be honest about it.
So you got to own it.
Own it. You know what I mean? And if there's an apology that needs to be done, then apologize, like a PR, like public, and just apologize. And other things that are like, something a little bit more serious, like, I don't know, something that really happened outside because you were like out and, you were drinking or something like that, and something happened and you got like arrested or something like that. Those kind of things, yes, you, in the same token, it's just more of like you have to apologize, but depending on the severity of it, if it's just not something you can kind of white out, you have to kind of own it in a way where you kind of have to incorporate that now and say like, and then maybe turn it into like help people not do that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, you have to kind of find the light in the darkness when it comes to that stuff.
You got to build that positive credit.
Yeah. Positive social credit.
Absolutely.
There's the thing with the internet now is that the internet never forgets. And the only thing that the internet hates is when you try to hide something. The internet hates trying to hide something. If you do something wrong and you come up and you're like, I'm sorry, and you don't try to justify it, it's hiding stuff and justifying it, the internet despises. If you come in and you're like, okay, I did this wrong, I'm sorry, I'm going to try to fix it, the internet will forget about it. Right now, something is happening. I don't know if any of you know James Charles. He's a YouTuber. We're not going to get into the controversy.
Actually, I do. I saw something on Snap a few minutes ago.
So not going to get into the controversy behind it because that's a massive story. But he just lost 3 million subscribers in one weekend, which is a massive. Yes, exactly. He's lost more subscribers than a lot of people have. So nonetheless, and the concept is like, he's handling it pretty well, like, because he came up and he's like, okay, I did this wrong thing, and I don't know the whole story, so whatever, but ignoring it would have been worse for him. Like, if he had just said like, I did nothing wrong, I'm out, like, this other person is like not telling the truth, it would have destroyed him, because the internet doesn't like stuff like that. So Eric's right, own it. Don't try to make excuses for it. You come to your community of people, your air quotes community, and you say like, okay, I did this thing. I want to change. I want to be a better person. This is what I'm doing to make those steps in that right direction.
Absolutely. Oh,
And there's the duck.
We got the ducks.
all right.
So
we're gonna take another break. Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh, I was just gonna wrap that sentence up. What he was Oh, come on, stop, buddy. I guess the essence of all of that distilled is it really takes humility to be able to push forward. Rock what you got, own it, and we'll come back after the break and talk and finish up this segment.
I think this is becoming a thing. Stay tuned. And that's where our sponsor would have gone if we had any.
Oh, Jesus. That was perfect. That was amazing. So if you want to sponsor us, what's the email?
The Life Podcast Show at gmail.com. That's one word. Again, that's the Life Podcast Show at gmail.com.
Wonderful. Beautiful.
That was pretty good. You should have heard me practicing that before I actually recorded it.
Oh, yeah.
Before. I had to say it like 12 times.
That was good. It was well done too.
Yeah, I have to say it slow in order to get it all out. So, welcome back, everybody. We're talking about, branding and how to tie that into, authenticness and how to be fluid when things don't go according to plan, like bad PR hits or, just things like losing 3 million subscribers in a weekend.
That's a bad hit.
Oof. Tell you, I don't know how I would handle that, but hopefully well.
I mean, I think the real secret to all of it is being humble and having humility and to be able to own your mistakes and say, hey, this really hurts and this hurts my pride, but I'm going to genuinely own up to it and then make that real change, that real turn, not just like I'm sorry I got caught kind of deal, but like
Yes.
I'm sorry now. I'm going to proactively prove to you that I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you have to accept the fact that there's going to be people who do not forgive you. You're going to lose followers, and that's just inevitable. You won't be able to get everybody back. It's going to be a hit. It doesn't, like, those 3 million subscribers will probably not come back, and if they do, it's going to be a small percentage of them. And you kind of just have to take that as a loss. Like when BP did the oil spill, I still don't forgive them for that. They did a bunch of promos to apologize and all that. Like, that was negligence.
Wash some ducks penguins in a basin. Everything's okay now.
We tried.
Dove was the one who
And that was Dove.
capitalized.
Soap, yeah, they capitalized on
Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They capitalized on that.
Look
big
how cute
time.
these penguins are. Please forgive us.
Yeah, so like stuff like that is just like those really big hits.
That's actually a big thing. Sorry, but
Yeah.
that concept is like somebody's gonna try to capitalize off of your pain and suffering. It's like that's like corporate America 101. It's like if I can make money off of your mistakes, I'm definitely gonna try to do that.
Yeah.
It's
Step
like-
one, cute animals.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean that's the core concept of taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, that's rolling with the punches.
Yeah.
Don was all like, oil. Let's watch some ducks.
Oh, mid coffee sip. That was good.
Corporate America is a beautiful thing.
But and that's the dangerous part about not understanding what a personal brand is. You're not completely corporate. You're not owned by anybody. You are in full control of everything you do. And I'm about to go into blaming. You can't put blame on your whatever happens. It's never anyone else's fault.
Yeah.
Granted, there could be some situations like, the government came up with this new law that kind of prohibits me from doing this and this, and that. Yeah, that's okay. But you should have been proactive in looking into the trends and seeing where it was going to go before it got
That's
there.
it. You still continued in that vein. It's like, this is wrong now, but I'm going to keep doing it still. It's like, okay, well, you did it because you wanted to.
Yeah. So, I hate to say it because it's going to sound like really condescending, but everything is your own fault.
Mm-hmm.
That's a serious place to come to. And there are people who have complexes like, everything is my fault. But a lot of the times when you can grab onto the fact of I'm in this place not because I blame X person or this person or that person. It's like I am here right now because of the choices that I made. And my life is a direct result of the choices I made with the cards I was dealt.
Absolutely.
I had a situation where I had to cut somebody off one time, and it was not because of the actions that they took, but because of the attitude that they had once they took those actions. I'm not going to get into it specifically, but it was like I didn't agree with the actions that this person took in general, but it's like, okay, whatever. You got to play the cards that you're dealt, you got to play the game, But then they came to me and they were like, "Oh, it wasn't my choice to do this thing." And I was like, "No, you actively decided that this was what you were going to do, regardless of however I felt about it. This was your choice. Don't come to me and be all like, "Oh, no, I fell into this thing." It's like, and that's what angered me the most, was this concept of like this offhandedness, like I am the victim here. It's like, no, like if that's how you're gonna play, I'm done. Like I'm walking away.
Shout out to Kenny Rogers. You gotta know when to hold him.
Oh yeah.
Know
Oh
when
yes.
to
Yes. Yes. There you
All
go.
right, cool. I was like, that was really personal. Never mind. It's a great song.
No, but no, absolutely. But that was a real thing where it's like you can't control somebody else's decisions, and you have to be like, okay, what's the profit loss on this? And this sounds very corporate, but it's like you have friends, and you're like, okay, this person has made this decision. Is my loss in that decision worth the friendship? It's like, okay, I'm going to keep the friendship because that's not worth losing over this thing. But then some things just bring it over the edge, and now you're net negative. And it's like, I'm not going to be net negative.
This is sinking my ship.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to have a toxic life because of your decisions.
Absolutely.
And hold on, before we go anywhere else, something like that too. A lot of times, we were talking about feelings and emotions earlier. A lot of times, even though it is unprofitable, sentiment will hold us to that anchor that will drag us to the bottom of the sea. It's like, no, sometimes you have to take sentiment out of it to be like, no, I have to cut this loss, I have to cut this weight, or else I won't be able to rise above.
Yeah. And that's a hard place to come to. It's sometimes a really hard decision. But you have to understand that you can't put the blame on that other person.
No, absolutely.
Like, everything that led to that point is in some way, I'm not saying everything is your fault.
It's their fault we're not friends anymore. No, it's at the very, very end of the day, it's your choice. It's your fault because you said, no, I'm cutting you off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like you made a decision of the way that you acted. It wasn't even the concept. So like if this person is listening, if you want an explanation, the concept wasn't what the person did. That's fine. Like, it's like, I'm not a fan of it, but it is what it is. Like, but it's the concept of like, I want you to think that this wasn't my choice.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, no, this was an active choice that you made. It's like, and yes, I guess if you're blaming anybody, it's my decision because I said that loss is not worth my friendship. Like, it's not.
Keep it real.
I'm gonna cut you off because you're being detrimental to my life.
Absolutely.
And that's really what it is.
Your life is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And when you have responsibility over something, you have to own it. And stuff like that. It's your life that's being negatively impacted by somebody else. So you have to take responsibility for your ship because if it sinks, it's your fault. No one else is going to give you the care. And as we grow older, like when you're a child, people are like, oh, yeah, you get coddled a little bit. But as you grow older, there's a lot less of that. Like, you are responsible for your own ship. So it is your fault. If you're getting attacked by friends or so-called friends and you're not realizing it and you're getting holes and you're not even paying attention, you're like, oh, well, they'll stop eventually because I've known them for years and I can't just leave them high and dry now. That can really hurt you in the long run. You have to be aware of the people who are taking too much out of the relationship and you're giving more than you're getting in back.
I guess you got to be real to you before you can be real to everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we talked about in the first show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, somebody said, and this is just rephrasing what Eric said, which is like, you're responsible for your own happiness. You're not responsible for anybody else's happiness. And it's like, if I'm responsible for my happiness and you're responsible for your happiness, then I have to do what is best for me in this moment. And it's like, I'm not going to judge you for your decisions, but don't judge me when I cut you off because of what you've done or the choices that you've made. And that's really what it comes down to. And that's a brand thing. That's a reputation thing. That's a whatever. Like, if you're in a toxic situation and you have the opportunity to separate yourself from that toxic situation, that's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show with the concept of like a sunk cost fallacy, which is a real concept where it's like, I've invested so much into this thing. If I just hold out a little bit longer, everything will be okay. Casinos are based off of this concept where it's like, I've already put $300 into this slot machine. If I keep pumping money in, eventually it will give it all back to me. And that's not true. It's like, you're playing a long game where odds are against you.
Yep.
That is what life is. And you have to capitalize on the little gains and not sink money into the massive losses.
Absolutely.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
No, I got nothing. I was just gonna praise it. Thank you, Benjamin.
Yeah, no, that is good. And that's really what it is. Like, you have to play the game for the long run. And we had this conversation off mic a week ago or so about, your brand and understanding what type of game you're playing. Because like you said, like the casinos run off of that kind of game where they're playing for the long run. Brands you have a competitive type of games where you understand all the players in the game. You understand all the rules. Everything is guideline, like a game of Monopoly. So you understand the rules. Everyone knows who's playing. We know what's going on. But the game of life is a little bit different. You don't know all the players. You don't know all the rules, and everyone's kind of figuring it out as we go. So it's important to understand that you're not playing this game to win. You're not trying to knock everyone off the board. That is not the game. The game is to last the longest.
I think you can really take what you were saying and bring it into baseball for anybody who's a baseball fan.
Yep.
You may not be able to recognize all the pitches, and there's two mindsets you can have when you go up to bat. It's either hit for contact or swing for the fence, and you're going to hit a home run. A lot of times when you go and you just shoot for the home run all the time, obviously you're going to whiff. Most guys who have the most home run records have the most strikeouts.
Yep.
That's just how it rolls. But to really rightly navigate life and to think about it, especially when you start out, hit for contact. Begin to learn what the pitches look like, the pitches that life throw at you. And then once you can recognize what that pitch is going to do, know when it is to stay safe and just hit for contact so that you can get on base versus, okay, I know what this is now, I'm going to knock it out.
Yeah, feel the game out before you go swing for the fence.
Right.
Yeah.
It's those decisions, those in-the-moment decisions where you have to say, what is the best situation that I can, what's the best thing I can do right now? And Eric was talking about a concept that I was taught was called the 4 states of understanding. And that's a really big topic, and we've talked about it before. And it's like the concept of the known knowns, the known unknowns, the unknown knowns, and the unknown unknowns. And the concept is that there are things that we know exist, and we know how they affect something. There are things that we know exist, but we don't know how they affect things. There are things we don't know exist, but we know that it has to exist because it has an effect on something. And there are things that we don't know exist, and we don't know the effects that they have. And that's a very large. So if you want to rewind and listen to that again, but
I'm sure we'll have a few shows that bring that up.
Absolutely, yeah. But that concept is very important. Where it's like we're not playing with a full deck.
Absolutely.
And we have to figure out what's changing and what is being added and what's being removed. And we have to make the best decision in the moment with the information that we have. And we can't judge ourselves or others for making those decisions in the moment.
Absolutely. And that's what gives you the longevity, because you're not trying to take everyone off the board. You know what I mean? Like, competition can be healthy, but competition can be very unhealthy at the same time. The way I look at competition is not like I want to take you down so that I can take all your customers. No. I want to study you and see what you do right and see what you do wrong. And take what I like and avoid what I don't like, and that makes my business better, and if I can help, I can help. But that to me is healthy competition. The idea of trying to step on everybody, get everybody out of the way to get to the top, that's an old way of thinking about competition. It's a dangerous way of thinking competition, because when you're talking about personal branding, you're talking about other human beings. You're not talking about a corporation. You're talking about a person who has a life and someone that you should be caring for. And that's the life of love, So understanding that, you're just studying them, not to destroy them, but to learn from them. And that's the healthy competition that I think is the way people should go. I know. Oh, I thought I heard a beep. So going. Sorry about that. So going into that, I lost my train of thought. So.
Well, the thing that to build off of what Eric was saying is like the one thing that I've learned from my parents who are in industry and now I'm in industry, is that never disregard the biggest players, because the biggest players are usually the ones who's been around the longest and they've made right decisions again and again. And if you study them and you say, what did this person do, not so that I can emulate it, but so that I can see what caused them to make the decisions in the moment, and if I can utilize them for my personal benefit, or for mutual benefit between the two corporations, then I should do that as much as possible because they are here for a reason. And if I want to play this game, I have to learn from the people who have been here the longest.
Absolutely.
No, that's really it. If you got anything else, we can.
Like, I just want to end it on, like, understand that business is an art form. All right, it is a form of art. Whether I look at life as a form of art. So when you're running your business, it's very important to understand, like, you can't completely copy somebody because that's stealing, but you can pull things from one company, from another. We can call it a company, or for one person from another person. Things that you
RUF?
like.
RUF.
Oh, a roof. Yeah.
And that's called referencing. You know what I mean? That we learned that when we were in high school and wherever else. Like, that's referencing, when you take a little bit from everywhere. And when you do that, you become unique, you know, and you take the things that you do like, and instead of just copying one thing, you know, that'll never work because nobody likes doubles.
Yeah.
But that's what I kind of want to end on. Just remember that business is an art form. So treat it that way and be creative and reference as much as you can. Study.
All right. So
Absolutely.
I guess we'll pick up this conversation on Friday.
That's it for episode 2.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Life Podcast Show. We really appreciate all your support. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning just to talk and share our perspectives on everyday life situations. If you haven't already, please share this with your friends and give them a chance to join the conversation. Also, if you liked what you heard today, rate our podcast. The higher the rating, the longer we can keep this going. And a special thanks to our future sponsors that will soon partner with us on this journey. If anyone would like to contact us, please email us at thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. One word. That's thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. Be blessed and have a wonderful day. Wonderful day. Wonderful day.